Hi Piccolos, this is a practice guide to Shostakovich Symphony 10, Piccolo part, first movement. I'm going to start, our first page isn't too bad, so I'm going to start at rehearsal 33 here. And then the chromatic scale. So just a few things. The breathing is hard. So you breathe here is a good spot. And then I opted to not breathe until after the G trill, which while I was trilling, I realized was a bad idea. So I barely made it to the A flat. So I would say you could either breathe here before the F or here before the F sharp. So before the F, the only thing, well, let me play it once. It's a very short amount of time, and you don't want to open up your embouchure too big to get the breath. You just don't want too much instability there in the embouchure. I think a better place to breathe be before this F sharp, just a real quick catch breath, just so enough to get through the trill. So starting back where I started before. That's probably a good place. Also that forte piano, I wouldn't go back too much. I can't remember what I did when I played it first time. I think I'm just hitting it not too loud, just G, and then just trying to make sure it stays up there, up on G, keeping the air fast, kind of maybe coming back a little bit with the embouchure, just kind of gripping onto the airstream, keeping it fast, but don't come back too much. I know it feels like the whole rest of the orchestra comes way back and it can feel very exposed up there, but I just wouldn't come back too much. And then when you land on A flat, alternate A flat when you get to that A flat. So basically you're just adding in the right hand, middle finger, ring finger, pinky onto that A flat so that it comes out. The chromatics, it's just a chromatic scale, but it's very difficult. And then it's going pretty fast, and you have different, you have a 5-lit, a 6-lit, a 7, and then a 9. And you end on the high C. I would say try to stay as soft as possible at the beginning all the way until the last 9-lit, basically. It'll naturally get louder. I wouldn't worry about a crescendo at all. What I did is I grouped these, like the 5-lit, etc., into little segments. So the first one, you have ya-da-da-da, it's naturally a set of 4, that's easy. And then D and C sharp, kind of thought of together, and then the next line 1 2 3 4 yada. So I'll play it with these groupings so you know kind of how I actually practiced it like that a little bit, like where I would sort of stop in between the groupings. Like that. Those are my groupings I was thinking of, and then just practice it, taking out the time in between a little less each time. You don't want to, going up to the high C, blow out everything and really just force it. The worst thing you can do is blow too much. When you blow too much air, basically what happens is it slows down your airstream. If you blow too much, like too much quantity. So if you're all spitty and are getting all the air out here on the outside, that's way too much air. It needs to be consolidated and then dense and very fast with resistance. So the crescendo up to the triple forte will come out naturally. You don't need to even try that. Try practice this one slow and focus on the resistance on your airstream, and then as your notes go up, that you stay on the airstream, so to speak. Like your notes are connected to your airstream all the way up, and they're not being blown out into the universe. For me, the most helpful thing I did was practice this whole run in those groupings, and also kind of stopping maybe where it gets difficult. So maybe stopping on, let's see, I'll just play it one more time. Maybe just stopping on that F. If that feels good, then maybe just go down and land on C sharp. That going up D sharp, E, F, E, D, it's a little squirrely in the fingers, so keep everything very close together, very soft. Well, you don't want to actively be thinking soft because then that'll create other problems, but just try not, again, like to blow out. Really pace yourself. You're just really pacing yourself and keeping it light through here. And then you could stop on the E. And then you can stop on the G sharp on the way up, just for control, so that you're controlled going through that. Sometimes some conductors, or in some recordings I've heard, really stretch out that scale on the way up to the C. Or stretch out the time, which helps us. Okay, now over to the next page. This is where it gets a lot harder. Okay, I'm gonna start down here. One of the most important things in this passage is knowing where you're going to breathe, have a breathing plan, and stick with it. For me, I'm breathing here and here, but you could really breathe anywhere. But it's really important to have that planned out and practice it that way, because if you don't, you're just getting little catch breaths here and there, and then it's easy to kind of think, I wouldn't say panic exactly, but feel like you're never quite getting a good breath. Going up and over the high A flat there, it's really easy for those notes to come unglued from the airstream. Just keeping everything onto the airstream. And let's see, what else? We have to use 1 and 1 for most of this for the B flats because we have a bunch of B naturals, but I switched over to thumb B flat here from that D flat when there's no thumb on. And then when I go to the B flat, I put it on for the rest of it, right? Yeah, for the rest of the passage. And then let me jump down to pickups to here, 2 before 42. 42 through here is more of the same thing. You just need to keep the resistance on your airstream. Don't blow too much, and don't make any effort whatsoever to be loud. And you can practice that concept slow, which is good for the fingers too. Like, for example, right at 42, you could just take that one slur and go slow and make sure all your notes are speaking without a whole lot of effort. You want that to feel pretty good, just in the amount of air it takes to get those notes out and the fingers, etc. And then you can speed it up from there. I'm doing the middle F sharp for this F sharp here. So this G, F sharp, G, E, F sharp. All these two fingers here in the right hand are staying close together. For me, it's just more stable for the physical instrument not to be moving around at all. But you could do real F sharp. Also, the middle F sharp for me personally just comes out a little easier. And then I'm doing regular F sharp here for this particular F sharp. I don't know why, just probably because chromatic to the F, it gets, I don't know, then it's just weird. I also think diminuendo, I have written here diminuendo, that's just a psychological, or I don't know, psychological, but I'm not really diminuendoing, but it tells me like reel it in, because the next measure is very awkward in the fingers with the cross fingerings. And if you're blowing too much air, those notes just skate right off out of your control. So if I exaggerate it, I'm kind of like I guess I do sort of diminuendo. Although when it's faster, I don't have time to actually diminuendo. But that's what I'm trying to do, is just, like I said, reel it in before that hard measure with the F, E, F, D, E, F, through that stuff. Let's see, breathing. You can breathe, you're breathing this pickup to D, and then you go all the way. For me, I'm breathing measure after 42. And then I try to go the rest of the way, but I remember when I played this before, I've only played this 2 times that I can remember. And I think I would remember all of them. So I think I've only played this twice, but I don't remember ever having a problem going all the way to the high C without a breath. But practicing it right now for this video, I'm finding I need to do a little catch breath right before ABC, just the shortest one. So that's what I have to do. So that's an option. Let's see, so I'm just gonna play it. Like I was mentioning before, a good way to practice a passage like this is to break it up. And you could do, with the slurs. and just do one little section at a time, starting slow and really focusing on your air efficiency. I know it's annoying staying up high, going really slow, but it's really key to monitoring your air and really practice air detail, basically airstream detail, really dissecting what you're doing. Okay, and then the rest of this trill is not too bad. Yes, and then we get to the end where we have this famous duet with the second piccolo player. First of all, let's see, I'll go over my fingerings. B flat, I would use the alternate. It's just safer. Normally, my normal fingered B flat is usually very in tune and everything. I don't know, I just put these down anyway, which is right hand, 1, 2, 3 right there, no pinky. It raises it a little bit and it's just a little safer. So anyway, I would do the alternate on that first B flat just to make sure it's high enough. The B naturals, the high ones, this is hard, very hard, because the B natural up high tends to be low, flat, and then we always have to drop down to the bottom octave B, which tends to be sharp. What I like to do very carefully is I do on B natural, the one above the staff, is I put down my A flat key. It just opens up the back a little bit. It just makes it a little tiny bit sharper, but it makes it a little brighter sounding. So from G sharp to B natural, you have to be really careful not to put down these fingers though. So B natural, I put down my A flat key, and then the B natural that you drop down to, for me, it's generally sharp. The biggest thing I try to do though is make it so that the high B is not soft and delicate, and then the lower B is like, oh, which is so easy to do for some reason. Like for instance, if I exaggerate, it just bottoms out somehow. I think because what I am doing when I do that is I open up the hole too much going to the bottom octave. So I try to not make too much of an adjustment and keep the tone quality of the higher B the same as the lower B. And so it's like hardly any adjustment in the embouchure. And my pinky sometimes stays down for that lower B. It's whatever, it does whatever it wants for the lower one. I'm not concerned about that. So that's what I am doing for those B naturals to make sure they are high enough. Any other alternate? Those are the only alternates I'm doing. Where I'm breathing, and this depends on your conductor who might want something different, but I'm breathing here, which is a little awkward, but I don't know. That's how I had done it last, marked in my part here. Another place that's good for breathing, if your conductor does not want you to breathe on that bar line, or you don't like to breathe there, because it is awkward for the phrase, is you could breathe, break the slur and breathe after the G, and then E, and then go through. So you could do, for instance, I'll just start on this B here. You know, like that. Definitely take a look at the second piccolo's part, and you might want to look in this book, this one here, the Patricia Morris and Trevor Y book. On page 185, they have both parts, both piccolo 1 and 2. I would play along looking at that so that you can see what the second piccolo is doing, and you see that every time you get to the B naturals, that second piccolo is there too. And then, you know, otherwise for intonation, just put your tuner on and see what your tendencies are. For me, my middle G naturals tend to be sharp, but since this is so soft, I just on those G naturals, I don't lip up or down necessarily. I just kind of feel like I can relax a little bit on that G. It'll be fine. It's not going to be flat, but the G sharps for me are flat. So G, I just make sure it's not too sharp. So I'm very relaxed on the G, and then G sharp, it's like lip up a tiny bit. You don't want to be lipping up too much immediately, because then you get to this place where you're so lipped up that you can't ever relax. So go through and find out what your tendencies are. It's going to be the B to B octaves are going to be an issue. So just work those out. And then G to G sharp. Make sure it's a half step and nothing wider than that. And then vibrato. Vibrato is good and can be helpful. It keeps the air moving and to create a beautiful but very tiny sound, and just a gentle vibrato. Etc. The G's that we hold, I like to do vibrato. I know a lot of piccolo players don't, or in recordings I've heard, especially the older recordings, it's just like this flat line. I like to do the vibrato. I think it sounds nice. Again, you can't do too much vibrato. It's just enough to keep the air moving and spiraling forward. At the end, it is helpful to know our last G, that the timpani does a roll on this measure and on our last held G measure. It's just good to know that. And on that last roll, I feel like when the timpani roll is happening, I feel like I'm making my air match their roll, and it just ends right at the downbeat. The vibrato at the end of the last G, I think it is nice to, you have a little bit of vibrato, and then right before the ending, I would straighten it out, just so you have more control, and it just sounds a little nicer. So it's vibrato, straighten, taper. For this solo or duet, but this excerpt here for piccolo, I would listen to a lot of different recordings to get a feel of the phrasing, the different breathing options, because there's a variety of things people do. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, critiques. Put that down in the comments or send me a message. I'd be happy to get back to you. I will do a practice guide on each of the rest of the movements in the coming days. If you're looking for those, they will be coming shortly. And please hit subscribe if you haven't already. I have a nice growing catalog of these practice guides now for piccolo, so you'll be in the loop with that notification of when the next practice guide is posted. Good luck practicing this very difficult piece, and happy practicing.